Welcome to Hot Flashbacks, where we boldly navigate the ups and downs and unexpected detours of our 30s and 40s while finally recalling how clueless we were in our 20s. I'm Molly Ward, your captain through this midlife roller coaster. Stick around for laughs, life lessons, and maybe a few I can't believe I survived that stories. Follow our journey on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Flashbacks. Make sure to like, follow, and share so I can keep making these episodes. Let's dive in. What is my old person voice going to sound like? It's going to be like screechy. That's more like a haunted voice. Never mind. Let's not.
Maybe both. That'd be fun.
Welcome back to Hot Flashbacks. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with my friend Megan. Say hello to the people, Megan.
Hi, people.
Yeah. Hi, people. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm really pumped about it.
So how do we know each other, Megan? Tell our life story.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Molly was my first friend in New Orleans.
In life.
In life. I distinctly remember, I don't know where we were going, but Molly picked me up in front of my work, where we worked in New Orleans. And I remember getting in her CRV. And I was like, this smells so good.
My car still smells good, by the way. I
have zero doubts that your car smells good. And you were just like telling about your life. I don't remember what we were doing, but the rest is history.
Yeah. And that was probably 2008
or 9?
9, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dang. Yeah. It right? feels sometimes like 3 lifetimes ago. Like in terms
7
of
or 8, maybe. Yeah.
In terms of like things that have happened and experiences that we've both had since then, it feels almost like multiple lifetimes ago.
Yeah, I feel like that often in general. And then when I think about leaving New Orleans, right? You left shortly after I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the way our lives have looked since said departure.
Yeah.
And I think we both still very much love New Orleans.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah. And the way that it's still kind of tied into like both of our lives independently. And also I think probably the reason that we're talking today is because that was our friendship and our time there in our 20s for me was really, it will always be an important relationship and time that I had. And so I'm excited to talk about how much less cool we are.
How old you are. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like my 20s was like so pivotal, 20s, early 30s, and like developing as a person, like so much growing. I tell people that I feel like I grew up in New Orleans in the sense that during that time in my life, right? Like, 24 to 34, there's so much learning that happens and so many life experiences. And it's wild when I think about, I don't know, like not to brag, but just like how far I've come, do you know? Like how much more like aware you are of yourself and comfortable and confident. And that is the cool thing about being old, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I say all the time, I wish that I knew what I knew about myself. A lot of what I knew when I lived in New Orleans. For example, we went to this like Halloween party last night. And I have one costume that I bought in New Orleans. And I finally wore it for the second time last night. It still fit. And one of my biggest regrets about when I lived in New Orleans was like, I did not dress up. I was one of those people who's like, that's dumb. I'm never going to dress up.
I don't costume.
Now, I don't costume. And now I'm like, what? I was missing out. Like, I think I just was in my head too much about it. And, either I couldn't afford it or I thought it had to be a certain way. And now, like I talk about all the time, if I live in New Orleans again, I'm going to dress up all the time, all the costumes. So even something simple like that.
What is the one costume that you had that you wore last night?
It's a Wonder Woman costume. It's one of the bag costumes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For anyone listening who's from New Orleans, you know how like patently uncool that is to have a Right? Like that's a thing. Like you gotta make your own costume.
You're right. And it's gotta be like, and I think that's the pressure so I'm with you, and I still don't like to costume. I think a lot of people do. Obviously New Orleans is a different place, and that everybody loves to dress up in costume all times of the year for all kinds of things. I experience a lot of stress and anxiety around costuming. And I think it's what you just said, is that like, it's not good enough to just like go to Spirit Halloween, grab something in a bag and put it on. Like it's got to be more than that. So I went to a Halloween party a few years ago, and my friend Tracy said, okay, the theme. And I was like, wait, theme, it's Halloween. Like that is the theme. She's like, no. The theme is traditional Halloween. And I was like, yeah, exactly. That was exactly my face. I don't even know what this means. Yeah. So I got to thinking about it. I was like, okay, I see where traditional costumes are more like Dracula and, a ghost and a witch and like, kind of like, okay, that was my train of thought. So I was like, this is great. I'm going to be a ghost. I went to the Goodwill and I got a white sheet. I put it over my body and I cut holes for eyes. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And my wife was like, this is not good enough. And I was like, no. It is actually the most quintessential Halloween costume, right? I mean, I think it is. So I wore it, and I have to say it was a hit. I didn't have to do my hair, but I neglected to cut a mouth hole. So, well, I mean, the traditional costumes, like, what do you think of the animation? It doesn't have a mouth hole. It just has two eyes.
You really...
Ghosts don't have mouths. So I should have tuck the snacks under me and try to be like eating them or consuming of the beverages like under the costume, which means I eventually had to take it off. But I have to tell you, it was a hit. People were loving it. So... I mean, that's my level. That's where I'm at with costumes.
Yeah, I respect it.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I'm still with you. Like, I think I still don't love it. But then there's also the pressure, I feel like, as a queer person, and I completely understand and respect what costuming can be for folks. And I have a lot of privilege in that, like, I don't feel like I need a costume to like be myself. So I think also for that reason, I didn't get into it as much. But yeah, I'd wear all the things if I lived in New Orleans again. And I was like, so concerned about so many things that I wish I hadn't been concerned about.
Oh, we're smarter people now, aren't we?
Brilliant.
It's good. That's good though, right? Like, I mean, it would be really, I think, a sad day if we were sitting here thinking like, dang, we were so much smarter then. Like, no. We are much smarter now. No. And I think if you think about that, think how smart you're going to be when you're like 60. You'd be like fucking brilliant.
I do think that sometimes. The downside is like, I'm convinced that I don't know. I haven't decided if I want my mind or my body to go first. Cause I think it would be torture for me, for my body to go and my mind was still sharp and I couldn't move my body. Cause I'm an anxious Nelly. Molly, since we've talked last, I've been diagnosed with I have Crohn's disease, anxiety, and like gastroparesis. So your girl, in case you were wondering about all that stuff in our 20s, she's got some anxiety.
I love that. That's the revelation. Listen.
So yeah, I don't want my body to go.
Girl, I've got a pill box Sunday through Saturday. Like I went and bought one because I was like, listen, I got to keep my medication straight. I'm at a point in my life where I'm not just taking an antibiotic once in a while or having I need some Advil. I'm like, where are all the things I need to take every day? And yeah, so I got a pill box. We are that old. So I really wanted to chat about anything because you're a wonderful person to chat to. And so we talked about some topics and you were like, along the lines of what you're just saying, talking about like the changes your body goes through and the physical changes that you notice in yourself as you start to age. What is the most surprising thing that you've noticed physically that feels different, better, worse? Any new moles you want to share with our audience? Do you have a skin tag?
I don't have any moles, but I will say like one of the things that I've noticed, I'll have my wife, like I realized this is for hearing purposes only, but I'm going to show you that I do this thing. And I'm like pressing on my arm skin.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
I see that.
And see the collagen is like, I mean, it's really close up. Like I'm losing collagen. Like it's just not as firm, or like, I don't know, I'm getting like little age spots.
Yeah.
So things like that, right? Or like my eyes, like if like mine's around my eyes.
What about your eyesight? Have you, because you've always like had glasses of sorts, or no?
No. I remember I was 30 and it was like, I work in higher ed, right? That's hence how we met. And I thought I had pink eye. And I go to the eye doctor and they were like, no, you have iritis, which is an infection of the eye. And by the way, you probably need glasses. So when this clears up, I need you to come back. So I went from no vision issues to glasses 10 years ago. Or 30, yeah, early 30s.
Yeah. It's happening to me. But they say it's pretty normal, right? In your 40s to have your vision decline. But I'm sort of doing this thing with my phone where I'm like looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, I have to pull it like a little bit away, but I feel like this is still a normal distance to have your phone. I'm not sure. So sometimes I'll just like have something on the screen and I'll turn my phone around and I'll shove it in my wife's face and be like, can you read that? And she's like, God, no, it's so close. Back up. I'm like, okay, I can't either. It's blurry. She's like, right, because it's like right in your eyeballs. I'm like, all right, I'm just making sure that I don't have any like, eye situations popping up, but it's going to happen. And it was
like reading signs at night for me. When I lived in California, I was having a hard time reading signs at night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds dangerous.
So I think I'm technically nearsighted.
And that means that you can't see far?
Yeah, it's a little blurry further away.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so what kinds of things have you found to be helpful as you've aged and been thinking about your physical health? I know you were big into running in your younger years, but for a lot of folks that, takes its toll on your body. So what are you doing now? And what have you noticed about how your body's changed?
Yeah, I noticed that I can't. I mean, I can technically jog, but I'm not running the way that I used to. So I think that, for me, at least in the last few years, I've definitely had this switch in my mentality about the use of movement, right? Or the purpose of movement. And so that's helped kind of, in some ways, like grieve the running that I used to be able to do. I didn't recognize it at the time, but in my 20s, that was a huge way for me to be mentally healthy. And so I think for me, the biggest difference, I also used to cycle a ton when I was younger. And so I'm doing that again. And I've, consistently done that. I don't lift weights as much as I would like to, but I really enjoy it. And so as I've gotten older, as my body's changed, one of the things that I've noticed and I'm like really appreciative of is, it sounds maybe silly, but I get excited that I can still do it. Right.
No, that's not silly at all. Like, I mean, because, I think when you're younger, you don't know what to expect about how your body's going to respond when you age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, we've talked about this a little bit, but like, my mother has worked her whole life and the movement that she did was really around survival, right? Like doing jobs that were like really labor intensive and things like that. And I have a different relationship with movement and it has to be really intentional. And so I think I had this sense that by the time I was 40, like my body was going to be like completely broken down. And in fact, it's not. I'm definitely the most aware of myself that I've ever been. And I might even be the strongest that I've ever been. And I think some of that's like just come with age. It's come with, seeing people lose their mobility. I have a good friend from graduate school who was diagnosed with ALS in the last 2 years. And so I think that perspective has given me the opportunity to take advantage of movement in a way that's about like being with my body rather than trying to make it something that it's not, i.e. smaller.
Yeah. There are things that I used to do that I feel like if I do now, I pay the price. And so some of it for me has been recognizing that I have to take things slower, or I can't. You're right when you talk about grieving. Like, I never thought about it that way, but there is kind of this like recognizing that things are different and being okay with that, and that it's just part of life and part of the kind of cycle. And sometimes it does feel sad, you know, to, even though, like you said, you feel stronger and more confident and you're more like aware of your body. I snowboarded, in moving to Utah. I kind of took up snow sports again that I hadn't done in a long time. And last season we were getting passes to Snow Basin for our family. And I kind of was like, you know, I like snowboarding, but I also like being physically able. And I'm at an age where, like, if I broke my ankle, it would be a bigger deal than, I mean, breaking an ankle is a big deal, but like, I'm starting to recognize that the healing process takes longer, that I need my body to be able to, you know, get through my day. And sometimes it makes me a little cautious to do things that 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought twice about doing. Maybe, does that mean I'm like living scared? Should I just be out there like mountain biking? And no, because like there are things that I wanted to do, like mountain bike is something I've always kind of thought I wanted to do, but now I'm at an age where I'm like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I've made it this far.
Or like you see the trails and you're like, oh, if I run a bike right now and I fell, I would go down that mountain.
It would be bad. Yeah. Like now it's to the point where there are some like hobbies and activities that could cause me death. Like the result of my failure could be death. And when I was 20, I was kind of like, it'll be fine.
Well, I don't think like, I think there's probably a fine balance between like living
and dying
responsibly and dying. Right. You've got a whole family now. You may have had hospitalizations or medical conditions since you were 20 where you're like, oh, wow, maybe insurance isn't actually that great.
Yeah.
And this would be really expensive if I hurt myself. Or like, if I were to really hurt myself, someone else would have to take care of me. Right. Like, I just think there's this awareness that we have about our body's limits that it's just so interesting to me that even, right, like our brains aren't developed until what, we're like 24. Like even after 24, like between 24 and 40, like having that, again, like bodily awareness to recognize that maybe it's not worth a hospital visit or not worth this like potential to be hurt. So I don't think it's about being scared. I think it's about
being smart. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm here for you.
Yeah. It is a little bit of fear. But also I think I started to realize, like, I got to a point where there are things that I did successfully that now I'm like, I did that and I didn't hurt myself. So that's enough of that. That's kind of how I feel about roller coasters. Like, I don't know if this is like an age thing, but like, I used to really like roller coasters. I don't know. I mean, not like a lot. Like I didn't like travel the US and have like a journal about the coasters that I rode or anything crazy. But I mean,
we got time.
Yeah, I know. You're right. I could, what is that website that people used to use? That was kind of like a blog. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't think people blog anymore, do they? Like just like type their feelings out.
I don't know. I was never like into the blog, but I know, it'll come to me.
Tumblr or anyway, I could just
There's definitely Tumblr.
Okay. I could just like travel the US and post my roller coaster findings on Tumblr. I don't know if anybody would read them, but so it wasn't to that level, but like, I like a coaster, you know, every once in a while. And like about a year ago, maybe two, no, it was about a year ago. We took the kids to Disneyland and we went on some rides and I had a good time, but it was Universal Studios. We went to Universal Studios and they have this like Harry Potter ride where you're like sitting, like you're hanging from the coaster and it's like you're sitting in the thing and it's like swinging. And I was like, I feel sick. Like what's happening? Like I started to recognize that like I can ride a coaster, but for some reason now it doesn't feel good. And I get like vertigo on occasion when I'm doing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've ridden a lot of coasters. Like, it's okay. I don't need to ride a lot of roller coasters. I've done it. I'll do it if I need to, but now they make me feel sick. I don't know if that's just because I'm old. Like, when was the last time you were on a coaster? I know this isn't the topic, but like, tell me about your roller coaster experiences.
No, it's been a long time. It's interesting that you bring it up because when I was younger, I also really liked roller coasters, and it happened for me much earlier. I mean, it's been
You're a late bloomer.
I don't know. I was probably in my 20s, I was probably in my 20s the last time I was on a roller coaster, but I couldn't, like, I almost vomited.
Yeah.
And now, like, any type of, if the thing that I'm in is not moving in this, like my eyes can't follow it. Like, if it's a car, a movie theater, I just don't have the constitution for it anymore. Like,
it's weird. It's weird. And I think I remember, and I don't know, because like memory is weird, and sometimes you think you remember things, but really you just made them up and then gaslighted yourself for years. I think my dad had the same thing where I remember him telling me at one point, like, I can't do roller coasters anymore. But we have a VR, like a virtual reality headset. No. Have you tried it?
No, and I won't because of that reason. Like, I just don't, I think my body, I don't know. So
for me, I actually really like it, but only very specific things I can do. So what I've noticed is that if I'm standing still and the movement is happening, but I'm the perspective is not that I'm moving, but that the things are moving at me. So have you heard of like Beat Saber? You like hit anyway. Okay. These boxes come at you and you hit them. Okay. But when I'm playing VR and I'm doing the moving, so I'm in a game and I have to get from like here to there. And so I use the controller to move forward. Nope. It's like immediate, like motion sickness. Like I can feel it and my stomach hurts and I start to like get sweaty. And like, Jackson plays on that kind of thing for hours and has no problem. So I don't know, maybe it's like an age thing.
Maybe it is. Maybe there's something about like when we're younger, and this is sometimes the thing that I miss. And we were just talking about how I was resentful because I didn't know what I know about my body. But in some ways that ignorance, right? We have such an awareness now of like our bodies and how our brains are working in conjunction with our body. Maybe it's that like inner awareness that, I don't know, it activates something in our brain that says like, this not safe for us. And when we're younger, we have less of that, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Or like you're less aware of the cues. Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay. I don't know why you're on this show then. We need to.
Yeah.
You obviously lied to me.
The fake resume.
So
I have an education degree, but you know.
You're back on the show.
A couple of those.
When you think about your younger self, like I did an episode last week, my first ever solo episode. It felt very bizarre. Just like this whole show I've been talking with people and it's been wonderful. But last week I just talked with myself and it wasn't as wonderful. What kind of advice would you give yourself in your 20s now if you could?
Oh yeah, man. I would tell her, I would absolutely advise myself to spend time to recognize my needs and to say them out loud. Like, I think, for me, my gift and my curse is like being like I'm a super deep empath and I really care about other people. And I did that to my own detriment over and over again in my 20s. It's not like I'm not doing it anymore, but I'm more aware of it, right?
Like I'm still into it. I'm just more aware that I'm into it.
Yeah. So like I notice it when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can pinpoint these times where like if I'd said the thing that made me where I was feeling uncomfortable or like unsafe or unsure, I don't know. I don't think it would have made the thing easier. But I can see examples, like look back and be like, I think it would have made it clearer. Right. And I think clarity is something that my younger self didn't have as high of a value, meaning like if you tell somebody how you feel and you're like, I'm the kind of person, if I think it's going to hurt your feelings, I like mull over it for months or however long, trying to anticipate what you might say so that I can account for all the ways that you might be hurt by what I say. In the meantime, I'm like struggling emotionally because I'm missing whatever thing is making me feel like I need to talk to you. And that time is really damaging for the other person in the relationship, where I'm trying to figure out like, how do I say this hard thing? And by the time it comes out, the hard thing is like, it seems,
done.
Yeah. So I think that's been a big thing for me as I've gotten older, for sure.
Do you feel like you're
challenging?
Are you better now at being able to confront the things that you need to in time for them to be resolved, rather than to let them fester to the point where there's no coming back from it? Is that like, do you feel like you have more of a handle on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have made that more like achievable for me. One is I do think as we get older, at least for me, I think our relationships start to look different, right? And I think like in intimate relationships, right, we're able to like partner with people who can meet different needs, and where, for me personally, like I can, I'm with someone who I can be very, very vulnerable with. And so that gives me that emotional sense of safety. And it's interesting because where I see it show up more now that, like I supervise a few staff, it's usually in supervision, where I have to really, really think with intention, right? Because, like as a supervisor, you don't want, right? You never want to tell somebody, give them feedback in an evaluation. It should be ongoing. And so it's been interesting to see how that's played out, not just in my personal life, but professionally, managing that and working towards that. And then I think, I don't know if this is podcast appropriate, but I'll say it. You're one of the people that I think about a lot in that regard. Like, and I was telling my wife yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, I love talking to Molly. She's great. And she was like, well, do you think you're going to catch up with her again? I was like, well, probably. And I was telling her that, because we were chatting a little about this before, like our friendship, I look at it as like one of those, like we were both talking about, like we kind of felt like we grew up in New Orleans. And you were like one of the people I grew up with. Like some of my most favorite memories are with you. And like towards the end of my time in New Orleans, I was in a place where I now know where I wasn't identifying my own needs, right, with regards to like my intimate relationship at the time. And I had a lot of concern about other people's thoughts about it. And so I tend to isolate when I'm fearful that other people won't understand me, right? And I kind of knew that, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And I surely didn't know how to ask for help around it. And you were one of the people that I assumed that you were like, she's lost her ever loving mind and I'm moving on. And so I thought that you were sort of like done with me. And I was like, well, I guess I'm leaving and my life is in shambles. But I didn't tell you that because I had this fear that like we weren't going to be friends anymore. And like for a minute, kind of the same result happened. Like we lost touch for a little while. And I've always had this like very tender place in my heart for you. But I think you're one of the friendships that's a good example of that. Like it's different for me than friends come and go. You were always someone who I've kept close in my heart, if that makes sense. Right. So that's like how I've seen it show up in my friendships, where I was like, I look back now and I was telling Emily, I was like, yeah, I think I could tell Molly now, like what some of my fears were. And I don't have the same fear that I did when I just turned 30 when I left, that I had then. And sure, like our lives look totally different. But yeah, I think that's a good example of knowing now and like having a different level of confidence and knowing that like being clear with people that you care about is actually being loving. Yeah. Even if you're afraid that it might hurt them.
Yeah. Navigating relationships as you get older, I think sometimes becomes a little bit easier. And like some of the things you're saying about like operating with clarity and understanding your wants and needs and being able to articulate them. Also with that, at least for me, has come the ability to disconnect when I need to and not have a lot of angst about that. And sometimes that can be dangerous. But other times it's exactly what I need. And I think I also have really improved on my ability to like forgive and recognize that people change, things change. You know, I'm not one to hold a grudge. And I think with age, I've recognized like I know I wasn't much of a grudge holder before, but like I had a lot of like really heightened feelings about things. Now I feel like everything is, you know, the frontal lobe is the part that gives you the perspective, right? And when it's still developing and when you're still, everything can feel really big. Like that's what I think about when I think about how my teenagers feel, is how like everything seems like the end of the world. As you get older, I feel like your perspective gets so much bigger that you're able to compartmentalize and be like, that was a time when that happened and this person did that thing, but it's not who they are. And so being older and like reconnecting with people or picking up where we left off or maintaining relationships throughout age, that all feels like it's getting easier than it was when I was 25. And I'm really grateful for that because I need relationships like that now more than ever. And I think it's it is what's going to continue to keep me healthy and engaged. I was going to ask you like fearful of aging. So like, what I fear most about being old is being lonely. Yeah. And so I think I've navigating those relationships and friendships and continuing to connect with people, has really like made my heart feel full in ways that I know, like, hopefully that as I get older, I can still have these friends, or even if it's someone, you know, you talk to once a year, you're like, hey, I'm in the area and I haven't seen you in 3 years, that we could still connect and our relationship can still be good. So that I hear what you're saying and like your perspective on yourself. I wish I could have given myself that perspective when I was 25, but I do think it also is just how it all came to be. You know what I mean? Like cliche.
Yeah, you'll appreciate this. So I hang out with a lot of folks our age, right? As it turns out, I enjoy millennials, right? We've got good jokes these days. My colleague that I work with, she's single, and you had somebody on the show. I can't remember. It was like early on, and y'all were talking about who's gonna take care of us? Like who? You talking about kids and things like that, and I actually have a lot of feelings about that, you know, in relation to my own parents. But anyway, this colleague is single, and I've talked to some single friends about like that's their fear, right? Like, 'cause there's this assumption that if you're with a partner, that person's going to take care of you, and the reality is that like you don't know that, and who knows how long you both survive this world. And so we were like talking about assisted living, and then Emily and I are chatting about it. And we were like, we should open up a group home that's run by student affairs professionals. She was like, how has no one thought about this? Like, if we invest in a facility and go ahead and contract like younger professionals to basically run a residence hall with programming and support services, but it's all around like adult development theory. She was like, do you think we should talk to an investment banker right now? And I was like, no. But anyway, because I don't think I fear being alone. I sort of have the opposite fear. I fear being a burden to people.
Okay.
And that's like I know that's my own stuff. And I mean, it's all tied to like why it's difficult for me to say what I need.
Well, that goes like back to sort of your empath thing too, right? Like, because if you're caring more about how other people feel than you, then you're going to feel like a burden at times.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would prefer not to be taken care of by anybody I know, unless this whole residence hall for the elderly works out. And like, I don't care if some of my friends have to wipe my butt. I'm like they're like, I would do that, right? I would reciprocate that for you all, but like, I don't want my kids doing it. I don't want my parents doing it. Like that I'd be good with.
Would not like to wipe your butt. But I will do that.
I don't particularly enjoy it.
Bulb in the nose thing for the snot. I've done that before. You know what I'm talking about. Don't look at me like that.
I do.
I think they do it for babies.
I feel like I need that so little. I need that so little.
Good. Well, then I guess,
that's going to be the least of my concern. I did tell you I have Crohn's, so it's probably
that's
like
true.
Time.
Like aging happens like in reverse. So I'm thinking like babies need the squeezy thing in the nose to get the snot out. So like, I assume that at some point as an old person, you're going to need that again, right? Or no? Is that just for babies?
I will contract you specifically for that task.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
That's what you volunteered for.
I mean, because think about it. Like you come into the world with no teeth, and a lot of people leave the world with no teeth. You come into the world with snot in your nose that you can't get out on your own.
Yeah.
I'm
leave pretty the sure world there's George Carlin stand up on this.
I think
my dad's usually George Carlin stand up. 99.9% sure.
Is he the guy with the big hammer that smashes the watermelons? Is that who's George Carlin? No, I gotta Google this.
He's like an older white guy. I think he's a bit. I don't know.
I think he smashes the watermelons, right? Never mind. Okay.
That sounds familiar. I just can't confirm if that's him or not. I'm not.
So
I don't know. But yeah,
you're fearful that you're going to be a burden to other people, and ideally, like people you care about, right? Because you can't really burden people that you don't really care about. Mind or body? Like when you think about going, the things will decline, right? They just will naturally. Declining mind or declining body? What's your pick?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I think for me personally, my biggest fear about like how I will feel aging is that I won't be able to use my body, like to move, to go to the bathroom. But I think what would be easy, I don't know, right? We hear things. So my mother has gone through a lot of health stuff in the last couple of years, and I've had to like do some physical things for her. And it's a lot. It's a whole lot. So sometimes I'm like, how would I feel if like her faculties weren't really there? Like which one's better? And I don't.
That's a real question.
I don't know. Like maybe for me, maybe it would be nicer to like just be oblivious. Like if my mind went, would I know? And it would negatively burden other people. Maybe that would be nicer for me.
But you wouldn't be probably very much aware of that, right?
If that's what I'm saying.
And
yeah.
you'd be out for a run, just like burdening the heck out of everybody at 93 years old. And you wouldn't even know, except
correct.
You probably wouldn't go for a run because you might get lost. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Alzheimer's runs in my family. And so my grandmother had it. And it's difficult. I mean, obviously you don't want either, right? So it's really hard to sit here and be like, that's like picking out which cancer you want to have. Like it's going to happen one way or the other. I don't know. Like, I feel like, Alex's grandpa right now is, old, and he is physically, not able to do a whole lot anymore. He's lost a lot of weight and doesn't get around a lot. It doesn't really leave the house much anymore, but like he sits in his bed and I go up there, like I was there yesterday, and I can talk to him, and we can have a good conversation, and he's still there and still feeling things and still connecting in relationships. And, but I don't know, I should probably ask him. Like, I don't know. I don't want to ask in like an offensive way, but I do think, the physical part of our bodies changing over time is something that I don't stop to think about a whole lot, but then it happens. Like you do something or you realize you can't do something you used to do, where I have these moments of like, I'm like, I had to bend down and clean the floor. Like I was like, that's it. I'm getting on my hands and knees. I'm going to scrub this stupid kitchen the old fashioned way. And just like 4 or 5 minutes into it, I was like, maybe I should strap some pillows to my knees. Like, is there like I need some sort of like because I can't anymore. When was the last time you tried to sit on your knees? Yeah. Like,
I can't. I have really sensitive knees. I just can't do it.
I mean, I have sensitive knees too, and a sensitive heart. So it's really hard. And I'm just like, thinking about how I need to like strap pillows to my knees to get on the floor and clean it. That's also why you should have children, because my parents used to make me get on the floor and clean stuff. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Right.
It took me like 40 seconds to decide that I was going to stand up because my knees hurt. And I knew that when I stood up, it was going to be painful. And that's the kind of thing that I thought was going to happen when I was like 80. And now it's like, I'm having these realizations that the physical changes start like a lot sooner than you think. And
so much sooner.
There's only so much you can do. Like, I mean, you do what you can, but when you think about a moment where you're like, man, I realized that like physically something is different, or I'm old, is there something that comes to mind as like a light bulb went off and you're like, oh yeah, nope, can't do that anymore? Or you find a mole recently you want to talk about, or
I mean,
body hair.
I think it was body hair. I'm actually on medication that makes my body hair a little thinner, which I really appreciate.
Oh, how do you get that?
You get Crohn's. So you get on a biologic. Yeah. I'm on Humira.
Okay. So. I'll let you have that one. I'll be over here with my a little bit thicker body hair.
I mean, at this point, I don't know if this is true for all 40 somethings, but I'm also like, in the last few years, I'm like, if it hurts, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right. If it's if it's a beauty measure and it's painful, I'm like, nah. So anyway, take that for what you will.
Like waxing your upper lip.
Yeah.
Like that, huh? You're like, yeah, no, we don't do that anymore.
I'll say this and then move on to the thing about my body. Within the last 10 years, I went to get myself a little wax, and let's just say I was halfway through the wax before I realized I was getting a free Brazilian.
Oh, but it was free.
That was unfortunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Which part?
The free Brazilian. It was like an 8 or pain scale.
Like in terms of pain scale? Well, let's just say I wasn't prepared for Brazilian, we've already established that I'm a very hairy person.
Yeah. So you were like, you like weren't ready for it or emotionally prepared. So it's not a way to go into it.
And then I didn't say anything to correct them because I was like, well, what am I going to do with half of Brazilian?
That's a look, I mean, it's,
yeah.
But you're right about like
didn't do that again.
Doing things like that when you're 24, you're like, these are the things we have to do. And when you're 40, you're like, I'm not going to pull that eyebrow hair out because it hurts and I can't get it. So it's just going to stay there.
Yeah. So there's some things I'm not willing to tolerate. I've not gotten a Brazilian since.
Totally fair.
I hadn't planned on getting one and I'm not going to do it again. It's a good time. I honestly think my back hurts. Like, I know it's cliche, but like my whole left side, like when I walk, when I stand, when I ride a bike, I think my whole left side, like if I get shorter, it's going to be like, I'm just going to be like this.
You're just going to be leaning.
Like I can't remember now.
And people say, get a new bed, get a new bed. I'm like, I didn't get a new bed a few times. My back still hurts.
Yeah. I mean, I try to stretch, mobility exercises, mobility. Oh, I feel like that's how you know when you're like doing the mobility.
Yeah. Or sometimes
get my movement in.
Like I'm sitting for so long that like, I'm just like, I don't feel ready to get up. Like, I feel like if I get up, I'm going to feel it in my back, or I'm going to have to, and I've said this before, but stretching is like my new favorite hobby. Like yesterday I was at Alex's grandpa's house and my uncle, her uncle Jeff was there. And, I kind of like put my arms out like this and he's like, oh, I thought you were coming to hug me. And I was like, no, I am. I'm just also stretching at the same time. Like, because that's how I roll these days. So this is like, I just need to stretch more, you know?
Yeah. I sit in my office. I'll like put my legs up the wall, or like I'll stand away from my desk and stretch. Like I'm constantly little inner thigh stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm like, God, I like wound myself so tightly. So I didn't stretch when I was running. And I was running a lot.
Again, like those are the things you don't have time for. Like when you're 25 and you're going to go for a run, you know, you need to kind of warm up and then maybe stretch and then run and then cool down. But who has the time? When you're 26, you're like, no, I got shit to do. I can't stretch. My body's fine. You don't feel it. You do it every day. Yep. And then you get older and you can't lift your, legs to clip your toenails. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was blow drying my hair, which I only do a couple times a week.
Well, it looks very nice.
I'm also glad I didn't have long hair when I was running, so I don't think I would have been able to do it. But in the motion of like flipping my head over, this is probably a month ago, like my whole, like my shoulders, my upper back, I like pulled everything and I could not move. Ugh. Like I'd worked out, I'd gotten up, and it was just like a random ass Tuesday, and I was in so much pain. I was like, Yep.
You flipped your head over. Yeah. That happened to me a few years ago. I was putting my suitcase in the car to go on a trip, and I picked up the suitcase and I put it in the car, and then I rode the whole way to the airport in pain. And I actually ended up paying for one of those expensive airport massages for the first and last time in my life, because I felt like I could not get on a 5-hour flight to Philadelphia because my back was killing from just lifting my suitcase up. So it's just,
I think that's how you know.
That is how you know. Like, oh, back pain becomes a new, like, normal part of your conversation with other people, with your spouse, or like, also, my dad always he would always scratch his back. There's always scratching his back, like, and the other day I was at Costco and I was at the self-checkout, and one of these ladies who's supposed to help you if you have items that are too big to put on the self-checkout, so she has a scanner, and she's, and I don't know, something wasn't ringing in. The bananas weren't ringing in. And so I'm just standing there and my little light thing's kind of flickering, and I'm trying to be patient, but I look over and this lady that's supposed to be helping people is leaned up against one of the displays, just kind of going to town like a bear, just scratching her back on the Zip Fizz stand. I'm like, I get it though. I get it, lady. Yeah. I let her finish because I know when you're older and your back itches, man, there's nothing that's going to stop you. I'll get on the floor and just kind of you got to do what you got to do.
Like a dog.
Yeah. Like a dog, just kind of rolling around. And my dad, he used to do that. I would just see him Dad, what are you doing? He's in the doorway, just kind of what are you doing? He's like, oh, my back itches. I'm like, oh. And he's, he had a back scratcher, and he'd keep it in all the places. In his car, and I've got 3, one in the bathroom, one in my desk, and one in my car. I am too old to have to put up with being itchy. I don't, if my back itches, I don't have time to be suffering. I'm on death's doorstep. Why do you look shocked?
I don't have a back scratcher. No, we have one from Mardi Gras.
Listen,
we have one, a single back scratcher.
There's only a few reasons to get married. And one of them is that you have someone to scratch your back and put lotion on your back. Cause you can't, how do people lotion their own back? Ask your single friend at work. I bet they have a patch of dry skin on their back because they can't reach to put lotion on it.
It's the worst. You ever think about how gross your back is for that reason?
I haven't looked at my back in 15 years. I'm not, I don't have the mobility, It's
I know.
I can't even see back there.
Oh, God.
I don't know what's happening back there. Oh man.
Get a mirror.
I tell you. All right. So
good.
In wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel most good about in terms of your physical health moving forward? Where do you feel you're really excelling and focusing your energy?
with my physical health.
Yeah.
I do feel really good about working out, and I feel like I should describe it in some other way, because there's like such a negative connotation to it. But I've done a really good job, I feel like, of prioritizing it. And, we talked about, like, we're thinking about having kids, and I have a real fear that, like, I won't be able to keep up with them. And so, like, using movement as a way to, like, sustain myself emotionally, but also physically, has been really rewarding. And, I guess the only thing I can really compare myself to is my parents. And for a lot of reasons, they didn't do that. They didn't have the opportunity to think about their physical well-being or the privilege to do it in the way that I do. And so I think part of it is also like a sense of responsibility to just try to live a better life. And it's not just about like making more money or like things like that, but living in a body that's capable of living the life I want to live. And so I think for me, it's as simple as I teach spin class. I've been trying Orange Theory lately. And it's been like such a relief to do it because it feels good, and to take off the pressure of doing it because I want to make myself smaller. Like, there's so many more reasons to move that I found that are just really rewarding. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. Good for you. I mean, it's not easy. Like you're right when you say, that you sort of have the privilege to be able to do that because you have a job that allows you the time or doesn't require a lot of you physically so that you can spend your time doing the things you like. But it's still not easy for a lot of folks to find a routine, to find something they enjoy, I've struggled in my own way with like losing interest in things that I did over time and feeling like, I just don't want to do it anymore. Like I went to Orange Theory for like 3 years, and then I just kind of was like, I don't know. I just don't like it anymore. That's my ADD, and just being like, I'm bored with this. But on the bright side, that also keeps me engaged in trying new things. Like I'm down to like playing pickleball, or, you want to go throw the Frisbee, or, do you want to go for a hike? I'll do that. And so I will do a lot of things, which I'm grateful for because I think it keeps my body guessing in some ways. I'm also really good at housework. And I'm like more than certain that's going to pay off someday. So.
It has to.
Yeah, it's got to. Usually in the beginning of the podcast, I ask you to say how old you are because it provides context. And you never said, and I forgot to ask.
Oh, I wonder how old. I think I've said it a couple times now, but I wonder how old I sound.
Oh, yeah. We could ask. That could be a poll that I attach to this episode. Okay, so you keep your age silent, and I will disclose it at a later date after the votes have come in. So we want to know, how old does Megan sound? Based on
that'd be interesting.
Okay, I feel like I have an old voice. Do I like?
You think so?
I don't know. I feel like when I hear myself, I sound older than I feel.
No, I don't know. When I heard your voice again, like on the podcast, I was like, oh, she's got a good podcast voice. But you sound the same to me, so it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, what is my old person voice going to sound like? It's going to be like screechy. Oh, that's more like a haunted voice. Never mind. Let's not.
Maybe both. That'd be fun. I think I sound younger than I am, but I think, but also, I don't know if it's because like I work on a college campus and I'm around a lot of younger people.
So you like know all the vibe, like the words. Bet.
But I don't. I can't say bet. Like I said it a couple weeks ago, and Emily was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mean it. I take it back. I didn't. So I don't know.
I really want to develop like an old person laugh. I feel like when I get older, I want to have like a cackle, like a witch kind of a thing.
It right now?
No, I want it to come natural. Like I don't want to like force it, but I feel like as I age, I hope my laugh ages into like a fierce, like old lady, like witch cackle.
Yeah. I hope that for you.
Life goals.
Really just, it would help. Yeah, I'm curious about the poll. We'll see. I got carded a couple weeks ago, and I was like, how old do you think I am? And he was like, maybe 29.
I mean,
major hair flip.
Look at you. I get carded all the time, because in Utah, everything you do requires you to be of some sort of age, and they scan you. Like they have this card scanner thing. I mean, you've been here. I don't know if you like went out to the bars or whatever, but if you go out and you want to have a drink or something, they have like this card scanner and they like scan you into like the system. And I think they have like a running list of like who all the sinners are, you know, like, and so
they do.
Yeah.
I went to a liquor store in Salt Lake once and I was like, what?
Yeah. They don't just look at it. They type you in. Yeah. I'm sure I'm probably even making entries like, this is Molly. Molly's here again. She was here last week. Make a note.
There's some spreadsheet on some server that one person can see or something. And that's how they're going to find us all.
I thought all of this scanning would have resulted in me getting like a survey about something, you know, like, can I at least give some feedback? But I've never gotten anything. So,
or at least a raffle. I mean,
yeah, I could be entered to win something for sure. You would think. Good Lord.
For your contributions to the taxes in Utah. I mean,
I'm telling you, I'm carrying my weight for this school system. Okay. So everybody should know that. I know. Megan, I appreciate you being here today, and it's been so good to chat. And it's been really good to chat about how old you are and how your body's aging, because it makes me feel like maybe I'm not. Like every time I talk to folks, I realize like we are sort of like all going through it in a way. It's like something that I don't think we really talk about on a deeper level. I think we joke about it, like, you know, your knee hurts, or, oh, what'd you do? Like, you know, bend over, and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I did. I got out of bed and now my back hurts. But it is like, we don't talk about it in like a way of sort of like grieving our younger bodies and also appreciating our older bodies, and sometimes recognizing that like it's not always easy to feel like you can't do the things that you used to do in the way you used to do them, and accepting what you can do and focusing on that. And so I feel validated and appreciated by you.
Good. Likewise. I'm glad you're doing this. I find it very entertaining.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, as always.
No problem.
This is Hot Flashbacks. We're out. Want more? We're on all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search for Hot Flashbacks and subscribe.